Spartan kick's the way to go.
Yes, exactly. Spartan kick straight to the chest. No body armor. What's up, dude?
This is Monster Games.
We are coming live, not actually live, pre-recorded, obviously, from the Monster Games. It's been a minute since we have done a podcast at an event. It feels weird. Normally now I'm inside my house and it's quiet.
Yes.
So now I feel like I feel like I'm yelling. Does it sound like I'm yelling?
It sounds a little bit like you're yelling, but that's all right.
Yeah.
Everybody knows the preference is to have conversations like we had last night, which is going to be a genesis for a lot of things we talk about today. But yeah, it's loud. It's crazy. I think by 3 p.m., everybody's got a headache from all the bass that's going on.
Dude.
But it's a good time.
It's exhausting being here, just listening to the loud music all day.
Yes.
And just hanging out. Like yesterday, I was clocked by 11 a.m. From the music.
Yeah, we hit noon, and I was like, it's only noon on Saturday.
Yeah.
What are we in for? It's been insane.
Yeah. You know what else happened yesterday?
Yes. I think everybody has seen the news. So there was an assassination attempt on former President Donald Trump.
Yeah. That's what we're here to talk about a little bit today. Preston, we met last year, 2 years ago.
2 years ago.
Monster Games. And kept in contact since a little bit here and there. He's a jiu-jitsu master. He choked out Tristan yesterday at the booth. It was pretty fun. How did that feel, Tristan?
Well, honestly, it was weird. So we did a test run with it, and we probably should not have done the test run at all, which really scared me. It got me a little nervous for it, and then once we started it, it was a lot different than the test run, and I couldn't describe how it went. Like, all I remember was I was just shaking, telling myself to come back, and then I was up, and then I get up, and all the women are freaking out. So
everyone was like, Tristan's seizing. He wasn't having a seizure.
But I'm alive and well.
Alive and somewhat well.
Somewhat well. We'll put it there.
He only lost 1 or 2 brain cells. He's fine.
Right, he's fine.
He's fine.
I do want to give kudos and shouts out real quick to Jason and his wife for inviting us here to host our podcast, to allow us to do content and do the thing that we do. It's been amazing. We love coming to the Monster Games every single year. It's a great environment. If you're into CrossFit, come check it out. Do the qualifier, compete, do all that. We truly do love these guys. It's been amazing. So anyway, let's talk about Donald Trump's assassination attempt. Preston, I didn't finish introing you. He's a jiu-jitsu master. You're a sales guy, right? You do sales.
So, little background on me.
Yeah.
Jiu-jitsu purple belt. Been training for about 7 years. Just jiu-jitsu. Other martial arts experience outside of that. I studied political science at Ohio State University.
Oh, you actually have a degree in political science?
Yes. Yeah.
It all makes sense.
My BA is in political science. And so most people watch The Bachelor or some other form of reality TV.
Yeah.
I prefer the real reality TV and watch politics like I would watch The Bachelor.
What about like people watching at the airport?
Oh, like people watch everywhere. Yeah. Like it's been interesting to watch people watch here.
Yeah.
Like, sit back, read a book, people watch. Kind of a nerd that way.
So you were in the military. What part of the military were you in?
Yep. So I served in the Marine Corps from 2011 to 2017. So I was a Marine Corps officer, supply and logistics guy. Got to spend some time in the Pacific and then spend some time in southern United States. Great experience. Had a good time with it, and then priority shifted and got out of that.
Heck yeah. So let's talk about the Donald Trump assassination attempt. Yesterday, we were sitting in the living room talking about what this means. What does it mean to you as like a political science nerd?
Okay, so I'll preface this with saying that I try to stay fairly apolitical. And what I mean by that is I try to be an observer of politics and note my observations and inform my opinion based on what I'm seeing from all different angles. Like, Counterculture podcast is obviously an alternative media source. And so I think a lot of people listening to this are of the same mind where they're going to listen to a lot of different venues and say, okay, let me form my own opinion on something. And I try to keep that same preface because what you're getting out of CNN and Fox News is going to be slanted one way or the other. And so as long as you're looking through that lens, you can kind of read through the leaves on what's actually going on or where the nuggets of truth might be. And so let's take a step back. Where was the media cycle 1 week ago or even 48 hours ago? It was all on Joe Biden's performance at the debate and then Joe Biden's performance at his press conference and the NATO summit. And all eyes have been on that. All media outlets have been focused on that. Is he fit to run for another term? There have been questions on, is he fit to be the president now? Do they enact the 25th Amendment?
What's the 25th Amendment for anybody that doesn't know?
Essentially says that if the president is unfit to be the president, they can remove him from office via the 25th Amendment. And so there are those conversations going on, and there's been some disarray in the Democratic Party on do they continue with Joe as a candidate? Do they look for alternatives? And we can get down that rabbit hole, but that's where the focus has been. And then you have this breaking news story last night where Trump is at a rally near Pittsburgh in Pennsylvania, and call it alleged shooter, we'll use the right vernacular, an alleged assassin fires some shots, and we don't want anybody to be harmed. Like, life is very precious. And so thankfully, Trump was missed. Unfortunately, we want to be very mindful. I believe the casualty count might be 2 now. People were killed. And a couple others were injured, which is it's heartbreaking.
Yeah, I want to say something on that real quick. There's already a bunch of people laughing at the fact that Donald Trump almost got killed, like far liberals. If you have the urge in you to laugh about anybody possibly getting murdered, let alone somebody who has a lot of power, not a lot of power, but I guess a lot of influence on the world, where like if he did get murdered, some like bad shit would happen. You got something twisted in your head.
And my
like when people laugh about like rappers getting killed, I'm like, what's wrong with you?
Right, exactly. But my hope is that is a very small minority of people that are just extremely vocal on social media, and it goes both to the left and both to the right. Like if Joe Biden is the president of the United States currently, and I would hope that anybody of the right is not out there praying that he meets his demise. Like we don't
there
want
are
that
people
to happen. There are people that way, and that's a very unfortunate circumstance of our times.
Yeah, for sure. So let's touch on the first thing that you brought up. Biden's like basically ability to be president. What do you think? How do you think his performance went?
The legacy media has perpetuated this narrative that all the fumbles and follies that Joe has experienced or President Biden has experienced over the last 3 years in office have been, those are cheap fakes. But we've seen the mental decline. He wasn't the same. He wasn't the same type of person, let alone the same type of politician that he was 20 years ago. And that's the age is definitely a factor. The media's propped it up, and then he goes out and does his performance at the debate, and it is very clear that he is suffering from some type of neurological deficiency. And that maybe that's age degeneration. Some are speculating that it's Parkinson's. I'm not a medical person. I don't know. I'm not qualified to answer that. But it's clear that there's a degeneration from even his first time debating while running for the 2020 election to now. And so you look at that and say, this is kind of terrifying that somebody that can't form sentences is in charge of foreign and domestic policy for the United States. Like, that's just absolutely terrifying. Not to say like his policies are bad. It's like, can he make a cognitive decision? And that's an open question. You don't want that to be the question of the person that is the president of the United States.
Well, it's mind-blowing. Literally in the first 5 minutes of the debate, I remember, by the way, my comment on the whole debate in itself is that it was a joke.
Yes.
Both parties. It was an absolute joke.
I tuned into RFK's RFK Juniors on YouTube to see somebody actually answer the questions and put their policy out there. Like, debate should be policy versus policy.
Oh yeah, and then the people get to choose after that. Yeah.
Not talking about like, oh, I have a better handicap in my golf score. It's like, okay, what are we gonna do? Instead of holding an election, we're just gonna go have a golf tournament for it? Like,
right.
Come on.
Right. So then in the first 5 minutes, though, Joe Biden literally fumbles his words completely.
Yes.
It should have just been cut off. Like, we should have just like saved everybody the effort there.
But his whole team set up this debate based on the rules that would favor President Biden. So no audience, the mics get cut off when it's not their time to speak, and everything was set up for President Biden to have the advantage or have the tactical advantage within the debate. What they didn't anticipate, and I think this was a folly on the Biden campaign side, was the time that they picked for the debate. You should have aired the debate at 2:00 in the afternoon when people have been saying that he's at his quote unquote best, instead of having it at 7:00 at night, running at 9:00 at night. Well, it's like, well, by all accounts, he's probably in bed by that time.
Yeah.
Right?
Sure. Yeah.
So I also think it went in Trump's favor. You look at the first couple of debates, especially in the Republican primary and then into the presidential debate in 2020, where Trump would get himself in trouble was he would speak over candidates, and he looked like a bully on stage. He didn't look like a bully on stage because he didn't have the ability to speak into the mic and anybody hear him.
Yeah.
And so that kept his, I want to say, ego in check, essentially. Like, he wasn't able to display his entire ego, which benefited him during that debate. So
I think one problem, though, that Trump did have, just to be like, I don't know, devil's advocate for kind of the way that I lean a little bit more, is that basically all he did was defend himself the entire time instead of answering questions.
I didn't hear shit about his policy.
Yeah.
Like, the first time I saw anything on policy was when they published the Republican platform. And to be perfectly honest, the Republican platform is probably the most centrist I've seen it in the last 60 years of politics, which is great. The American people want somebody that is in the center, that is going to make compromises on both sides of the aisle.
Yeah.
And so it's a smart move on that part of filling that space and that want of the American people to have a centrist president. Like, Joe Biden ran on that campaign in 2020 where he's like, I'm going to bring the American people back together. And you saw it in the first term, the campaign leading up to Obama's first term, where he's like, there is no red Americans, there is no blue Americans, it's just Americans. And I think that got people really rallied around Obama for his first term. Joe did a very similar thing where he's like, hey, I'm the segue. And without saying it, he made people believe that, hey, I'm running for one term to get Trump out of office and pave the way for the next generation to take over. And now we're here in 2024, and he's like, nah, I'm not going anywhere. The only way I'm going anywhere is if God makes me go anywhere.
Yeah.
Right?
Facts. Yeah.
And so it's kind of feels disingenuous.
Yeah. Because
people assumed, like, hey, you're going to make way for the next generation of politicians. So
sure. Let's talk a little bit about the thing that happened last night. So we talked a little bit about why or how the guy could have even gotten on the roof, right? Because in my view, it's like, how is the perimeter not even like, or the perimeter, however you say it, how is the perimeter not like checked? How did this dude even get on? My mind immediately goes to conspiracy theories, right? Because, man, I don't know. We talked about conspiracy theories last night too, and I think oftentimes what happens is like the media makes the conspiracy theory sound way more crazy than it actually is. But it's very crazy to me that this guy could have even gotten on a roof during a presidential, rally.
Yeah, so we are not even 24 hours in. Everything that we say at this point is speculation and conjecture. But the media, social media is in line with where you're at. My feed is blowing up with this was an inside job because there's a ladder. There's now pictures coming out of a ladder being placed next to the roof that the assassin was on. Then, he was in plain view. There's a BBC interview out there of a shop owner nearby who, for about 2 minutes, was pointing to the roof, trying to direct Secret Service over there. One of the camera angles points out that one of the counter snipers is aimed in the general direction that the shooter was. And so the question is, like, why didn't the counter sniper take the shot first? Why did he let him get 5 rounds off? We don't know any of these details. The Secret Service and the FBI are going to say they're going to do a thorough investigation. Obviously, the public's not going to have insight into that investigation unless Congress opens up their own investigation. So there's a lot of details at play, but the leading conspiracy theory right now is that it was an inside job, that the Secret Service let it slide, or Secret Service capabilities have degraded to a point that this was allowed to happen. Not necessarily encouraged, but their readiness isn't to the level that it should be in order to protect key personnel for our government.
Yeah, and so one theory that we talked about yesterday was that maybe it was staged and not necessarily like allowed to happen, but it could have been staged because Trump immediately drops down to the ground, which is what you would probably do if you got shot at. And then maybe put some blood on his ear, some fake blood, which would be interesting. I don't actually think that happened now, thinking about it, but it is interesting to me that one of the most, who should be highly protected people at what seems like it should have been a highly protected venue actually got an attempt of assassination, and this dude had a rifle on him.
Yes.
That's the craziest part to me is the dude had a rifle on him. Why not just shoot? And you said something against that, because to me, I would be like, just shoot the guy. It doesn't matter if it's a kid, doesn't matter if it's an airsoft gun, doesn't matter what it is. Shoot him. You don't know, so it's but
from my time in the Marine Corps, there was an adage that we always had that what is the truth on the ground? You could be in a command and control center, 100 miles away, 1,000 miles away, 10 miles away. It doesn't matter. What matters is what is the truth on the ground. And so unless you are in uniform as a Secret Service agent, if you are that counter sniper on the rooftop, you can never truly know what the thought process is there. My speculation is that the counter sniper did not have positive identification on the shooter. Maybe missed the rifle, couldn't make out the rifle, could have been trying to get that positive identification or get agents in place to confirm whether or not that was a threat. And so it's not as immediate as somebody looks like a threat, I take out the threat.
Yeah.
It's, I try to neutralize the threat, and that could mean many different things. That could be, control tactics, that could be. And so my thought is they couldn't get positive identification on the shooter until the shots were fired. And that's why the assassin wasn't taken out until after the shots were fired.
What do you think happens after this? For me, I think this plays if the Dems wanted anything not to happen to Donald Trump that would help his campaign, this is it. He survived an assassination attempt, gets up and goes, I'm good, or whatever he did. The crowd roars. Do you know how many people are going to look everybody, all of his true followers already look to him as God. Now he's an invincible God on earth.
Yeah, and those that don't look to him as God are now saying...
I don't. God is God.
Yeah, they're now saying God is on Trump's side. It was divine intervention and I'm not saying this, but there are folks that are saying that it was divine intervention, that he turned his head at the last possible second and that bullet grazed his ear.
It was divine intervention.
Yes.
If God meant for him to die, he would have died.
Yes. But. And so there's a few things here. Like, everybody thought that his mugshot was going to go down as the most iconic photo of him during his time. Now you've seen the photo of his fist raised with the American flag flying in the background, blood on his face. That will go down as one of the most iconic photos in history.
Ever.
So, you put it up there, and this is coming from Marines. So any of the Marines out there listening, yeah, you're probably going to say I'm sacrilegious for this. But this goes up there with an iconic photo like the flag raising on Iwo Jima. Like, that's going to be the level of this photo and what it represents and how it goes forward. So it's crazy to think that like that just happened less than 24 hours ago.
Yeah.
And we all witnessed this part of history.
So I think something that I keep seeing perpetuated on social media, even before this happened, is people keep saying that we're nearing a civil war, and that they think now even more people are saying that they think a civil war is going to arise out of this. My thoughts are this. Most people are too pussy to get involved in a civil war. That's just my honest to God truth. I think that one thing that the Trump and Biden era did, Trump when he initially ran, and then the COVID thing, and you can tell me your thoughts on this. I think one thing that the Trump era did was it pulled a lot of people who were on the right and made them into alpha males that have no experience with violence or anything. And suddenly now they're experts in violence and they'll do anything to protect their country. And I think it's all cap. It's all a lie. Most of these guys. Someone like you who's trained in jiu-jitsu, who is in the Marines, I would believe it, but you're also probably not touting yourself on social media as this guy who, I would do anything for my country. I'll do anything for my family. You know the guys that I'm talking about? They're just as cringe as the guys on the other side doing the like, we stand with women always. We stand with Biden, like all that stuff. It's the same thing, just different parties, and it's so cringe. Anyway, all that being said, you think we're even near civil war?
I think it's one possibility. Is it the most likely possibility? No. It's really going to depend on how legacy media and alternative media play this out.
Yeah.
Because if you look at things that have transpired over the last few years, the attempted attack on some of the Supreme Court justices. You look at the attack on Nancy Pelosi's husband. Like, there are some fringe people out there that you would look at and say, yeah, they're not capable of violence. But humans are interesting. If they believe that there is no alternative and there's no possibility for flight, then the fight mechanism kicks in and you have no idea what a human being is capable of.
Well, let me rephrase it. It's not that I don't think that everyone is capable of violence, because everybody is capable of violence. What I think it is that I don't think that the people who suggest that they're capable of violence will actually act in violence unless there's a big crowd acting in violence, right?
Yeah, they're encouraged by the masses.
Exactly. And I think that most people are in their house just tweeting or posting on Instagram, being, what's that called? They're trying to get social brownie points from either side via the things that they say. And I think a lot of like the right-wing people are sitting in their house with their loaded gun, and they're not actually going to walk outside with a loaded gun.
I would hope not.
The majority of Dems, even though we see all the crazy liberals and all that stuff that go to college campuses or whatever, I think the majority of them too are sitting at home tweeting and going on Instagram and trying to get the crazy ones to uproar and go do some crazy shit. And I also would love to at least give people the benefit of the doubt that most people are actually pretty like conscious, right? Like they're actually pretty reasonable people, the majority of people.
And I would take that a step further and say that those that are capable and competent with violence are the least likely to be involved with that.
Yeah, I would agree.
And so it would take a lot for it to come to a civil war, because those that are capable, those that are competent in the realm of violence and application of force, know that war is hell and know the price of war. And we spent 20 years in Afghanistan and Iraq, and they have seen what that does to women, children, elderly. It is hell. And nobody wants that. Those that are competent within that domain do not want that on domestic soil.
Yeah.
And so I don't think it's the most likely scenario. What I think is more likely is that tensions are going to get ratcheted up. There may be some localized pockets of violence or pockets of domestic disturbance.
Almost like the BLM riots and stuff.
Yes, yeah. I could see factions of the MAGA crowd and factions on the left. So, you could call it Antifa, call it whatever you want, getting into small-scale skirmishes in major metropolitan areas. Outside of that, I don't see it going past that. What I'm more concerned about is how the media spins this.
Yeah.
And because on the surface, you're going to say this was a mentally deranged, radicalized, isolated shooter. But is that really the case?
Right.
Like, now we put the tinfoil hat on and say, okay, who were they radicalized? Was it a state actor? Could it have been China? Could it have been Iran? Could it have been a Russian with a keyboard radicalizing an individual and then prompting them to take action? Well, I doubt we'll ever find that out. On the surface, it's going to be mentally unstable person attempts to assassinate Trump.
Yeah.
I think that's what the narrative's going to be. But we'll see over the coming days and weeks.
Yeah, hell yeah, dude. Hold on one second. I'm going to restart this camera quick. Any last thoughts on this?
My last thoughts are take in the information that's coming in, but use your brain.
Yeah.
Think about it. Think about the bias behind the media outlet that you choose to absorb your information from. And please get your information from multiple different sources and then form your own opinion. But also remember, it's your opinion.
Yeah.
It's not fact. It's not conjecture. We're not going to know all the details. And just like assholes, everybody's got an opinion. So be respectful. What I hope is that everybody realizes that the tensions are high and that we are all Americans together. And we need to remember that regardless of what your political beliefs are, regardless of the direction that you hope the country goes in, that, hey, we're all in this together. We all are next door neighbors. Be kind, be polite, be civil, have a great discussion. Things like this, being able to sit down on a podcast and have a conversation about it and respect each other's opinions, that's what we need to do as a country.
Yeah, for sure. Well, dude, I appreciate you taking the time to chill and talk.
Always a good time.
And having good conversations this weekend. So, all right, guys, like the video, subscribe if you are new. I think give us a rating on Spotify and iTunes and all that. I don't know if it actually does something, but hopefully it does.
Do it.
And then buy a t-shirt. I'll put a graphic on the thing. Maybe Travis can help me with that.
We were rocking it. They're dope.
Oh,
Get
good.
one.
Thanks, brother. All right, cool. We'll talk to you guys in the next one. Peace out. Goodbye.